Today's daf is daf Lamed Hey, and we had a discussion in the Mishnah, a back and forth between Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Gamliel, and Rabbi Yeshua was of the opinion that if the cheese of the idol worshippers was made with rennet, and that rennet was part of an animal that was sacrificed for the idols, comes along Rabbi Shmuel and he says to him, if so, then the cheese should be asur b'hana. Why is it the Chachamim say the cheese is only asur b'achil, but it's mutar b'hana? And it seems that after Rabbi Gamliel put forward this argument, Rabbi Yeshua accepted that argument and rescinded his original position. So the Gemara now asks, V'lahader lei. Okay, we're counting down from the top of the Amud, just a few lines down from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. Why didn't Rabbi Yeshua just simply answer Rabbi Yishmael by saying Mishum delesa li'isur b'yenei? That's on line 5, actually. Meaning that the reason why the rennet from the sacrifice of the idols is not asur b'hana is because it's what we call unidentifiable, which means you can't point to the rennet. It's nowhere to be found. It's absorbed and nullified by the larger cheese. And that would explain why the way that the cheese is forbidden for achila. Again, it contains some sort of chefza d'isur of rennet, but it's not forbidden for hana. The hamurius l'rabbanon, and I'll prove it to you from the case of murius according to the Chacham in our Mishnah, the lo asru b'hana. They did not prohibit murius for hana, even though this murius, which is, if you remember, a fish fat dip of idol worshippers, might have some Avoda Zara in it. And yet it was mutar b'hana. And why is the reason for that, my timer? It must be lab mishum delesa lisur b'yenei, because that part of the wine which was added to the murius is not to be identified. So why don't apply the same logic and the same principle of the cheese? Amri, and the Gemara says, Hacha kevan di ukme kamokim chashav lekeman de isa lisur b'yenei. So in the laws of tarovis, of mixtures of isa v'heter, it's not enough to say, well, the Isser is completely unidentified. You can't find the Be'en. Because there is something called a Dover HaMaimid. And that's not bottle, even in 1,000. What's a Dover HaMaimid? It's something that gives the foodstuff its stature. I don't know, its nature. And the nature of cheese is because of the rennet that's used to curdle the cheese. So therefore, despite the fact that it's lesa lisur b'yenei, nevertheless, it's a davar maimid, and a davar maimid is not bottle. The rennet is the agent that produces the cheese. And therefore it's considered identifiable. It's not batel, even though you don't see it, you don't taste it, but it gives, it makes the cheese. Now he quotes a chiddush from Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, which is called a yotzim in a osir osir. That means that something that comes from something that's osir is also osir. All right, the Mishnah, as we go on, he sealed the davar acher. So Rabbi Yeshua, when he wanted to avert and circumvent the arguments of Rabbi Shmuel, he distracted him. And he distracted him by quoting a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. And what does it say in Shir Hashirim? Ki tovim dodecha miyayin. What does this mean? Ki osir avdimi Omar Knesses Yisrael fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ribono shel Olam Arevim olai divrei dodecha Yoser miyena shel Torah. So dodecha, which literally translates as your beloved ones, is referring to the Chachamim. And when the Chachamim enact a halacha, the arevus, meaning the pleasantness of the divrei Chachamim, surpasses even that of divrei Torah. So when he says that in the pasuk, literally it says your love is better than wine, what he meant to say is the love for the Chachamim and their words of wisdom surpasses the wine of Torah, meaning the written Torah. Why did Rabbi Yeshua raise the question about this particular pasuk? There are many different psukim in the Torah that could have led this and could have taught the same conclusion. So what was special about this pasuk? Omer Reb Shimon ben Pazi, Tim Reb Shimon Ami, Mereisha dekraka Omer le. He was trying to teach him something from the beginning of the pasuk. Yishakeni minshikos piu. May God kiss the Jewish nation with the kisses of his mouth. Omer le, Rabbi Yeshua said to Rabbi Shmuel, Yishmael achi, my brother, chashok sifsochsecha zu b'zu. I want you to tighten your lips, meaning don't say anything. V'al tahavel, and don't be quick, lahashiv, to respond. My timer, why did Rabbi Yeshua say that Rabbi Shmuel should not, should be silent? Don't raise any objections. Amar ula v'teimer Rabbi Shmuel Rabba gzera chadosh v'ein gzera chadosh v'ein mefakbekin ba. When Chazal issue a new gzera, in this case the gzera of gvinas akum, then we don't ask any questions. The ruling is on gzera chadasha, we let it go by. V'ein mefakbekin ba. We don't raise any questions or objections. And what is the reason for this is because, as the Gemara is going to explain, people will question the Gzera, and then at the end they'll be mezalzel in the Gzera. They won't take it seriously. And therefore let the Gzera sink in, seep into the mentality of the people, and then we'll be ready to reveal its reasoning, and people could have their objections, and we'll deal with their objections. But it's already been solidified. My Gzerata, Amar Reb Shimon ben Pazi, Amar Reb Shimon le mishum nikur. So now the Gemara wants to know, when the Chachamim instituted this new Gzera, that we're not allowed to eat the cheese of a guy, what was the reasoning for that? And the Gemara is going to offer a number of answers. The first of which, Reb Shimon ben Pazi, mishum nikur. Now, I think the word nikur literally means, linaker means to bite into something. And here, in this context, we talk about a nachash. So we get back to the fact that the Ovdei Chacham, as we said earlier, back on Daf Lamed, they're not makpid to cover their liquids, and therefore we have to be suspicious of the fact that a snake left its venom inside this liquid. And therefore, according to Rav Shimon ben Pazi, cheese also has this liquid element to it, which attracts the snakes, and they'll inject their venom into the water which is being used in the process of cheese making. So therefore, if we buy these cheeses from Goyim, then we have to suspect that maybe the snake injected a venom into this water that was used to make the cheese. So it's like inside the cheese. So the Gemara raises the following objection: but Rabbi Yeshua, when he was being challenged by Rabbi Shmuel in that dialogue, he doesn't say that cheese is prohibited because we're afraid of a snake. Well, why didn't he mention that? Kida Ula. Ti Omar Ula ki gazu gzeirota b'marova. When they made the decree originally, that was in Eretz Yisrael. Lo megala taima tresa yarchish. They would not reveal the reasoning and the underlying logic for the gzera for a period of a full year. Dilma ika inishtlosfirle. Maybe there'll be those who don't agree with the need for this decree, this gzera. And asil zalzulebe, they're going to start, spreading words amongst the people that this is not a valid decree. Megadef ba Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah did not appreciate this statement of Rab Shimon Pazi, justifying the prohibition of non-Jewish cheeses because of nikur, because of the snake. Elameata yavsha tishtere, yashan tishtere. There are many situations in which you could look at the cheese and you could determine that there's no venom of a snake in the cheese. For example, if the cheese dried up, then the snake is not attracted to the cheese. Or if the cheese is aged, it's older. Tiyamar Abchanina Yavesh Mutar, because Ein Manichem Liabish, Yashin Mutar, because Ein Manichem Liashin. Meaning that if the cheese is old or dried out, we know for sure that there's no venom in there, because if there would have been venom, then it would be impossible for the cheese to be dried out. Or if there was venom, then it would be impossible for that cheese that was left uncovered to become aged. He explains here in the footnote that when freshly produced wine and beer are left exposed to possible venom contamination, they become permitted if they age, since the presence of venom would prevent them from aging. Hence, if cheese of an idolater is forbidden because of the concern that it might have been contaminated with snake venom, then dried or aged cheese should be permitted. We actually had a Gemara like this above on Daf Lamed Aleph with regard to the beer of an idolater. Because the Gemara says that we're not afraid of the possibility of the beer becoming contaminated because it's old beer, but we're afraid that if we allow him to drink the old beer of the idolater, he might come to drink the new beer from the idolater. Amar Rab Chanina. So the Gemara now admits that there's no answer to that question. Therefore, we have to find a different explanation for the prohibition against cheese from idolaters. Lefishi efshar la below tzchuchei cholav. Okay, this is a bit complicated because you have Rashi here and you have Tosfos. So we'll try to do at least a superficial attempt at understanding this Gemara. Okay, we'll start with Rashi. When rennet is added to milk to make cheese, the rennet curdles the milk, causing the solids to separate from the liquids. Though the cheese will consist primarily of the solid mass, which is formed by the curds, there will inevitably remain some pockets of whey, meaning of the liquids, in the holes of the cheese. So again, we're not concerned about the non-kosher element, meaning maybe they use the non-kosher animal for the process of making cheese because non-kosher animals do not, right, the milk of a non-kosher animal cannot curdle. But nevertheless, there's still a possibility that he mixed some non-kosher milk into the kosher milk, and then he produced the cheese. Now, even though the curdling process serves to filter out the non-kosher milk, which is not curdle, nevertheless, there'll be some traces, which is called in the Gemara's language, tzich chalav, of that non-kosher milk that was mixed with the pockets of whey, W-H-E-Y, right? Whey that inevitably remain in the holes of the cheese. However, Tosfos rejects this interpretation. While it's true that the Gemara later on in Amud Beis prohibits drinking an idolater's milk, even when its white color indicates that it comes from a kosher animal, because the concern that the idolater might have increased the volume of the milk by mixing in a small amount of the less expensive non-kosher milk, whose yellow color will not be noticeable in the preponderance of the kosher white milk. But that concern exists only when obtaining unprocessed milk from an idolater, not when obtaining cheese from the idolater. For surely the cheesemaker would not be so foolish as to add non-curdling milk to the milk from which he wishes to produce the cheese. The non-curdling milk will simply settle out and remain with the whey. Therefore, Tosfos says that what Rab Chanina has in mind is not a new reason for the prohibition of Gvinas Akum, but rather defending the reason put forward by Reb Shua ben Levi that we're worried about snake venom. Rabbi Yomi had objected that if so, the cheese should be permitted to be if it's dry. To this, Rabbi Chanina replies, there's no such thing as completely dry cheese. Inevitably, some pockets of whey remain in the cheese, and the snake venom will remain together with that liquid whey in the holes of the cheese. Ushmuel Amar, now we have another explanation for the prohibition established by the Rabbanon of Gvinas Akum, Mipnei Shemamidin Osa Bi'or Kevas Nevela. Now again, we have to know a lot about cheese making here. I need a crash course in cheese making. But apparently, in the animal of the idolater, we have to talk about the or, keva, and the keva itself. Now, the or keva is translated here into English as maw, M-A-W. So again, I'm not a bucky, and I can't tell you exactly what this maw looks like, but we'll call it or kevas nevela, like the outer skin of the keva. And this R is a davar mamid. In other words, that's what produces the cheese. Or keva literally means the skin of the rennet. But it really means the meat of the rennet. So the stomach itself is meat, and therefore, if it's nevela and it died without shechita, then you're not allowed to eat the meat of the animal that died without shechita. It's nevela. Now, you may say that the taste of the stomach meat is not detectable in cheese. Nevertheless, the cheese is forbidden because the nevela meat, the juices that exude from it, is the, and again, the nevela meat here is the or keva, is the agent which curdles and thus produces the cheese. So even if it's not banned and you can't see it, but it's the agent that produces the cheese, a dover amaymet, and it's not butter. He offers an alternative approach in the name of the Ravid, that even though a forbidden substance absorbed in a permitted mixture generally does not forbid the mixture if the forbidden flavor is not detectable, it does forbid the mixture in this case because of a chumrah that was instituted by the Chachamim to avoid eating the food of idolaters. Now, again, there's a whole discussion to Rishonim here about why there's no problem of basar b'cholav here. But in any event, the Gemara is going to object because Shmuel is worried and concerned only about the Ar Kevas Nevel. So the Gemara asks, Ha Keva Gufa Sharia? Are you implying that what's inside the R, which is called rennet in English, is permitted? You know, do you put all the emphasis on the R of the Keva, not on the Keva itself? The Keva is rennet. So by saying that the cheese is forbidden because of the meat of the nevela, meaning the R, Shmuel's implying that the hardened milk collected in the nevela's lamb is permitted because the hardening milk is mere pirsha. Umi Amar Shmuel Hachi, but I'll bring you a contradiction. Vatnan, we learned in a Mishnah at the end of Chulin that Kevas Ovikol Chavim Vishel Nevela Rezu Asura. That not only is the R of the Keva problematic, because it's like the stomach and the basar of the animal, and it's nevela, but even the rennet itself, if it was an animal that was slaughtered by an ovid kochavim, or if it was the rennet of an animal that died without shchita, it's nevela rezu asura. So why did Shmuel have to put all the emphasis on the R keva if the keva itself is asura? Avinin ba atu deovid kochav lav nevelahu. I don't get it. You're telling me that there are two categories here. There's the keva of the Oved Kocham, and there's the keva of an Avela. Why do you need to introduce the keva of an Oved Kochavim when certainly the animal that was slaughtered by the Oved Kochavim is an Avela? I mean, the idol worshippers cannot do shchita, so the animal, for all intents and purposes, died without shchita. It's an Avela. Omar Shmuel says no. You have to alter the Mishnah. Chadaktani. It's not two separate categories, but one category. Keva shchitas ove kochom nevela asura. The reason why the keva of ove kochom is asura, again, keva means rennet, is because it is nevela. So in other words, Shmuel says that even the keva comes under the Eastern nevela. Why did Shmuel mention only the ar hakeva? Lokash.